What is up, guys? Dr. Sophia here, and I am back with another video. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you can stay updated on all of my content. Don't forget to like this video, and don't forget to share if you care. And also don't forget to check the description box because I always put a lot of stuff in there, including my products. Specifically, you may be interested in my book, For Single Women, Fix It Jesus for Single Women Only, which you can get in the description box, because what we are going to be talking about is we are going to be talking about a single women's topic, and this is teaching men how to treat you. So let me explain what I mean. You can, so for example, I have been in a relationship or dated whatever men, right? And if you have ever noticed that a man can treat one woman like gold and another one, and the same man can treat another woman like trash. And most oftentimes women will wonder, well, why does she get treated like this while I get treated like trash? It's because, as I often say on my channel, men will do what you allow them to do. And if you don't teach people how to treat you, then they are going to treat you however they want to treat you, which means that you are going to be getting the short end in the relationship if they determine that they don't want to treat you correctly. Now, some people may say, okay, but if he don't want to treat me right, then why do I want to be with him anyway? Because at the end of the day, some men genuinely do not know how to treat women. Some men genuinely do not know what is right or what is wrong behavior, because so many women allow men to walk all over them that some men have gotten accustomed to walking all over women and they don't even know that it's wrong. And so when they get with a woman with standards, aka you, and you start putting down boundaries and standards for yourself, they may be like, okay, but I got away with this in my last relationships. But realistically speaking, allowing men to walk all over you doesn't necessarily make it okay. It just means that they were allowed to do it because nobody has put them in their place yet. And when I say put them in their place, that doesn't mean that you snapping on people. We're not doing that. You teach people how to treat you based on your actions. And that's what I'm going to teach you. So first, always handle yourself with class. I'm going to give you an example. A lot of men that I have dated or been with or relationship with or are friends with will tell me, Sophia, I will never feel comfortable calling you a bitch ever. I don't think that any men should be calling anybody a bitch ever. I have never had a man come up to me and call me a bitch, at least to my face. And let me tell you the reason why men will never call me out my name, or they will never get, oh, but so disrespectful to me, is because out of their own mouth, they say, I can't even see myself calling you anything or coming out the side of my neck for the simple fact of how you handle yourself, right? Because if you are handling yourself with class and you are handling yourself with respect and you are handling yourself with dignity, then that's how you feel about yourself. Nobody is going to come up and treat you less than what you're treating yourself. And the moment that they do, I'm going to tell you how we handle that later on. But see, what a lot of women do, and they subconsciously don't realize that they do, is that they subconsciously tell men that they are worth less than what they are. So, for example, like me, I always expect for men to make time for me. And if they don't, I'm calling them out on it. So what that teaches men, for example, that if you don't make time for me and I mention it and say, hey, I really like you, I really like to make time for me, and they don't do it, what that symbolizes to them that I have set my standard. This is how I expect to be treated in a relationship. And when you don't do it, I bounce. If you expect for men to spend time with you and they also choose not to do it, but you still keep giving them your time, then what you have said to them is that I am not worthy of being respected, and I am at the mercy of who you are. I am at the mercy of your time, and you can treat me however you want to treat me because what I want doesn't matter. And it's those small things. So that's why you have to always handle yourself with class. I'm going to tell you an example of how I do this. This was many years back. I went out on a date with a guy, and he had to be 45 minutes late for the date. I was already going to go on the date because I didn't feel like turning around going home, and I was already hungry. And so when he showed up, I did not lose my cool. I did not yell. And we started the conversation, and I let him know in a polite way that I really don't like dealing with men who are late and they don't notify me because you were over an hour late. I didn't harp on it. I didn't anything. So then at this point, he was not very apologetic. He didn't really get where I was coming from. And once the date was over, he had the nerve to ask me If I still wanted to go out on a second date, in which I reiterated no, and I reiterated why, again, I really didn't respect the fact that you left me waiting for 45 minutes. And then when I mentioned it to you, I really didn't respect the fact that you didn't apologize. And then I went about my day. And this guy continued to call me for an entire 2 weeks, but I was over it just because I don't like waiting. But in that scenario, you might decide to go back to the guy, which you could. But what my point is in that scenario, this man has just showed up an hour late to a date. He didn't realize that he was wrong because he had probably done it to other women and they never say anything about it. I told him something about it. He did come out and finally apologize after I told him my expectation. But my point is that we would have never gotten to that if I didn't tell him my expectation of how I wanted to be treated. If I was always accepting his tardiness, his lateness, or him getting to me whenever he wanted to get to me, then that is how he's going to continue to treat me. But because I set the precedence in the sense that my time is valuable, because it is, everybody's time is valuable. As I always say on my channel, time is something you can never get back. But if you really start to illustrate that I got other better things to do, even if it's sitting at home by myself, my better things to do don't include waiting on you, then people will either respond to your expectations, and if they don't, you leave them alone. It's going to bring me to my next point. Tell men your expectations. I cannot tell you how many women just magically expect men to kind of read their mind, and then they get mad when a man is not delivering what they want. Like I said before, men have been in relationships with different women, with a whole bunch of different women, and every woman acts differently. So therefore, every expectation that a woman has of the man that they are with or dating is different. So what you need to do is you have to differentiate yourself and tell men your expectations. What you do not do is say this in a domineering way, right? So when we go on dates, what we are not doing is, I expect for a man to pay for my date. I expect for him to do this. I expect for him to do, because then it just sounds like demands. What I personally do is, for example, if you expect for a man to pay for a date, I don't think that I've ever told a man that I expect for him to pay for a date. I just go on the date, and then when I come, and then when the check comes, I just sit there. Like that, I'm not even reaching for the check. I'm not even going to bring it up because my expectation is I'm not reaching for the check. And so by me not reaching for the check, surely he understands that I'm not going to pay for it. And so from there, either he is going to pay for the check or he is going to ask me to pay for my half. At which point, this has happened to me before, a man has said, oh, do you want to split the check? If my expectations is not for me to split the check, or I like for men to pay on a date, if a man asks me this, honestly speaking, if a man does this to me, then typically what I will do is I will kind of give him a look like it's shocking to me, because it is. Normally, I am very traditional in that sense. I might even say it like, oh, I'm very traditional that I expect men to pay for a date. But if you want me to pay for a date or pay for my half, then I will. What did I just say to him? I have set out my expectation because I have said I am very traditional in the fact that I'm used for men to pay. I am used to men paying for a date. So what that says to him is my expectation. Either he can pay for the date or either he can't. And then I even followed up and said, if you can't, then I can pay for my date. So what does that say? I'm not using you for your money, because a lot of men think that when you're telling them to pay for a date, that means that you're using them for their money. So that's saying, no, I'm not using you for the money. I can carry on myself. But then for me, right, in this example, if I have already told a man that I expect for him to pay for a date, and then after that, he then says, okay, you could pay for your half, I'm not going to see you anymore. Because guess what I have just told in that sentence? I told him what my expectation was. I expect him to pay for a date. If he's not cool with it, then I can pay for it. And if he's not cool with it, because for me, I never go crazy on the date and ordering like all this expensive crap just for no reason. I do believe in being respectful. So I feel like if you're not paying for the date, then whatever my portion is not a lot or not insane, then that's just something that you don't want to do, because that is the type of man that you are. And for me, that is a character flaw in the sense that I personally do not like men who are selfish or stingy with their money, because if it's that type of thing where you don't even want to pay for a date, and especially if it's the first date, then that is going to be the expectation going forward, in the sense that I will always have to pay for something, or I will always have to pay my half. And that's not something that I personally want to do. Now, that's just an example of paying for dates. For you, dates might not be your thing. You may want to pay half of the date whatever. But my point is not just about men paying for the date. My point is whatever your expectation is, you set the expectation. You let them know what the expectation is in an appropriate way. Just like I said, oh, well, normally I expect for men to pay for the date, but if you don't want to, then I'm willing to do that. You see how non-aggressive that sounds? But if I'm saying, oh, well, you need to pay because I'm a high value woman, then that automatically sets it up for like an awkward conversation. So tell men your expectations in a non-threatening way. And then they respond. So in the example of the date, either he's going to respond by paying for the date, or he's going to respond by saying, oh, well, you could pay for your own half. And so based on his response, I determine what I'm going to do, right? Because if my expectation is paying for the date and your expectation could be anything, and he does the opposite of my expectation, then that's when I have to act and say, is this expectation that important to me on if I want to see this person again? And I honestly feel like if a man intentionally does not want to meet your expectations and the expectation is important to you, and I'm going to leave my blog down below about deal breakers and how to figure out, because there's some stuff that isn't that important and then there are deal breakers. You have to determine based on the expectations that you told him if you want to stay or if you want to go, right? But understand that the moment that a man doesn't meet your expectations and you choose to stay, that is going to invalidate every expectation that he has in your mind, because the first time when you set out your expectation and you told him what it was, you went back on that, right? So what does that mean? If by chance I said on a date, oh, I really expect for men to pay for my date, but I got it, right? And he says, okay, you pay for your meal. If I go out with him again, then he's going to say, okay, well, she's always going to pay for her meal in the next expectation that she sets. Even if it's, let's say, I don't know, I expect for a man to open up the door for me when we walk through the building, and he doesn't do that. And I say it, he's going to say in his mind, oh, but yeah, she had that expectation that she wanted me to pay for her meal and I didn't do it. And now here she is again. So understand that when you set your expectation and a man doesn't meet it, if you continuously see him, it's going to say to him that your expectations are null and void and that he doesn't have to follow them because you're going to bend on your expectations anyway. So just keep that in mind. When you tell a man your expectations, be sure to follow up with what you're telling him. And if you bend on that, then know that it gives him the right to bend on your other expectations as well. And it's setting a precedence for probably how he's going to treat you in the future. Okay, which brings me to my third point. Cut people off when they do you wrong and don't give in. Why? Because this will do one or two things. A lot of women will, and this is honestly the number one way to set boundaries and to teach people how to treat you. But a lot of women don't like to hear this. A lot of women don't like to hear this because a lot of the times when women set their expectations and the man is not willing to meet them and the man is willing to leave, because either one of two things are going to happen, that if they don't meet your expectations and you leave, either they're going to chase you or they're going to stay right where they're at. So if a man chooses to stay right where they're at, then understand that he was just never that into you anyway. A man who is really into you is going to want to get to you when you leave. This is not a manipulation tactic. This is not anything. This is about you getting what you want. And like I said, if you stay past beyond a man breaking your expectations, you are teaching him that he can stomp all over you. If you leave every time a man breaks your expectations, you are telling a man that I value myself, I value what I want, and I'm going to go after what I want with who I want, and that may or may not include you. And he knows that because you're willing to walk away. Now, some men may say, okay, fine, I'll let her go. If that's the case, he don't want you anyway. Never in your brain should you say, oh my goodness, I set my boundaries, he learned his lesson, he's not apologizing, he's not taking it back, and you're just going to go back to him because you don't want to lose him, when all reality, he never changed anyway, or he never, said sorry, or he never met your expectation. If you set an expectation and he doesn't meet it, then you need to go. If you come back like, oh, well, I was gone for 24 hours, or I was gone for 2 weeks, and even though he didn't meet the expectation, I'm back, it's still sending the message that, okay, eventually when she calms down, she's going to come back, and I don't have to meet her expectations really, because all I have to do is just give her some time and space and not call her, and I know that she's going to come back to me, right? The next one is that if you do choose to leave, 9 times out of 10, if a man really likes you, he is going to try to make it right. At that point, you communicate again. One thing that I know with men, like for example, when it comes, and this is just the easy example because I was rocking with it. When it comes to paying for a date, let's say the expectation happened that he did not pay for my date. I was like, okay, that's not the type of man that I want to date. I bounced. And then he calls me and says, hey, I really enjoyed our company. What happened? I reiterate why I left. Don't ever just brush it under the sand and say, oh, I was busy, because nobody is reading your mind. Nobody knows what's wrong with you. You want to address the issue at hand to ensure that it doesn't happen again. So I would say, oh, well, I really saw that we weren't compatible because, like I said, I really am very old-fashioned in the way that I like for men to pay for dates, and it seems like you weren't willing to do that, so I didn't want to waste your time. Do you see how the expectation is still there, is non-aggressive, and it opens up the conversation for him to say, I'm ready to pay for dates, or yeah, I still don't want to pay for dates. Thank you for letting me know. Goodbye. And like I said, the dates is just an example for, you could replace it for whatever it is that you want. When a man comes back and when he's calling you, don't assume that, oh, he's ready to meet my expectation. Always reiterate why you left and then see if he's willing to meet you. And if he says, oh, well, I was just calling you, but I still don't want a relationship. Like, for example, I had a guy said this. I have left a guy alone after dating for a while, and he's like, well, I don't want a relationship. And I'm like, okay, cool. We could just be friends. So then I fall back, and then he's calling me like, well, what happened? Blah, blah, blah. Well, remember you said that you didn't want a relationship. And since we were talking so often, that was feeling like a relationship to me. And so I thought I would fall back. So then he said, well, I still don't want a relationship, but I want to talk to you about, listed all these things. And I was like, yeah, those behaviors that you want from me sound a lot like a relationship. So if you don't want those things, and if I'm not your girlfriend, then I'm going to stop giving those things, because those are things that I could give to somebody else who does want to be in a relationship with me. And he didn't back down. He was like, okay, fine. But understand that I'm still getting what I want, because he didn't want to be in a relationship with me, and him calling me and me then assuming that he wants to be in a relationship with me because he's calling, and then me over giving to him, and then only to find out 5 months down the line that he never changed his mind and he still don't want to be in a relationship. My feelings would have just been hurt, right? So that's why it's important that even when you leave, understand that a man coming back is not, admission of guilt, or that it's going to go in the direction that you want. Restate your expectation and see if he is willing to follow them or treat you the way that you expect to be treated. And if not, don't cave in. So the next one is stop chasing and giving in. I can be famous for this, and that's just because I'm very short-tempered when I cut people off. So sometimes I will go back and be like, oh my goodness, maybe I was too harsh in cutting this person off. Maybe I was too fast when cutting the man off. And honestly speaking, because I follow all of the steps that I'm giving you, never have I cut a man off and felt like by following these steps, I did it prematurely. What I am guilty of, especially in the past, is once I follow these steps, I see that the man is still trying to be nice, or he's still checking on me like the other example, and seeing how I'm doing, I will automatically assume that this means that he has changed. And then I will give him another opportunity. And then when the same behaviors keep happening, I'm like, okay, but I thought he was changed because after a week he was acting right. And then I went back thinking he was acting right. But in all actuality, it was just a temporary change. But see, the reason for that is because I was chasing. Like I said in the last example, you can chase, because what a lot of women do is that they want a relationship so bad that they subconsciously chase. So even in the relationship example that I gave, right, I kind of felt like it was getting into the realm of me chasing him, in the sense that we were cool. He was acting very relationship oriented. Sometimes we would even talk about the future. Sometimes we would even talk about the future of us getting married, right? That sounds a lot like he wants a relationship with me. But then when it came down to, oh, let's move things forward, let's make stuff official, what did he say? Well, I told you I didn't want a relationship. And see, my mistake was that when he came back in, talking to him and him, quote unquote, planning a future with me assuming that changed his mind, and therefore me re-entering into the situationship with him, thinking that the situation was moving forward, when in all actuality, he just said whatever he needed to say to get me back. And I was now chasing him because, you know, some of the stuff that he was saying made it seem like we were going to have a future, when in all actuality, he was just breadcrumbing me and leaving it like, and trying, you know what I mean? He was breadcrumbing me and trying to keep me hanging on by a thread, but it wasn't indicative that he was going to actually give me what I want. And that's why it's important to actually hear the truth of a situation, communicate clearly to the person. Once the person is or is not giving you what you want, you bounce, you leave. You don't sit and say, oh, well, they gave me an inch of what I want, so let me go back. They gave me a little bit of what I want, let me go back. Or they didn't give me what I want, but some time has passed and they bought me some flowers and I'm going to go back. Because even though all of that stuff might be nice, the problem will still keep arising over and over and over and over again if you don't address the issue at hand, and if the person is not treating you and or giving you what you want exactly how you want it, exactly how you want to be treated. The moment that you cave into that, they're going to say to themselves, I have a license to treat, to do, or to be to this person however I want to be, because all I have to do is distract them with some flowers or some other talk. You know, just like with my friend in the relationship, oh, let's talk about a wedding, let's talk about future, let's talk about that. And he hadn't even made me his girlfriend, nor did he have intentions to. But in my mind, when I heard that, I'm like, okay, well, we're headed in the right direction. Only when I revisited it later to find out that he hadn't changed his mind. Does that make sense? So you really do want to communicate directly to people and find and not let them like wishy-washy roundabout way around your expectations to trick you into thinking that they're meeting them, when in all actuality they're just not, and they just want you to make you think that they did when they haven't done anything, right? All right, guys, that is about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys another day, another time. Bye, y'all. Not ready for the show to end? It doesn't have to. You can head over to my site where you can read hundreds of articles. And also you can feel free to shop my store where I have all of my products for sale. And last but not least, for even more video content, feel free to visit my YouTube channel where I talk about a wide array of content. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and until next time, stay blessed.